Hey, my fellow parents, and welcome back to part two of this very important episode, this very challenging episode. And I just want to start off by just saying thank you. Thank you so much. Jordan, I looked in our podcast ratings and I heard from my podcast team that our podcast is rated number three parenting podcast in the world right now.
Amazing. Unbelievable. Incredible.
It's such
Incredible.
a it's such a great feeling knowing we're really helping parents, we're inspiring them, we're making them laugh, and we're doing this together as two regular Joes. It feels so good being here with you, my man.
And honestly, it's great that we're making some parents angry because the reality is what we're talking about might be completely different than what you're used to. So
Oh
we're
my,
throwing in, we're throwing in some
yes.
ideas here. We're like, this is making some people angry, but now it's getting them thinking that maybe they should change their styles a little bit.
I'm really, I'm surprised you said that because it made me excited to see and read some of the comments that we get either on my social media or on the podcast reviews. Which, if you do enjoy this, please give us a positive 5-star review on your Apple Music or your Google or wherever you listen to us. Really would love to hear that. But yeah, I mean, we said some pretty edgy things last week, and even like some of the episodes we've been releasing. There's some pretty edgy stuff we've been saying here. I want to
Well, I mean,
rile
this
people up.
this episode specifically, just reading the headlines, so many people probably want to write you and say you're wrong because it does work. And of course, we're talking about how to discipline and which way should one be disciplined, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so in the last episode, you really broke down how to get to the kid's heart and you gave us a lot of great stats, right?
Yeah.
Talking about grounding. Does grounding actually work? And I was saying to you that I still do ground from time to time and how it works in my home. And maybe people listening are still grounding their kids. But then you gave us studies from Yale talking about it doesn't, change a child's heart when we do that. And then we started talking about spanking. And,
Mm-hmm.
when we were kids, I got the belt. My friend got the wooden spoon. Did you get one of those? Did you
Oh,
have some kind of the shoe or
I got
what'd you get?
spanking and I got the soap in the mouth,
Oh, the
Dad.
soap. And my mom did that to my brother, I remember, because he was a little dirty mouth as a kid. And yeah, so we've done all of that. You talked about spanking and some of the studies that came out, and some of the harmful,
Yeah.
realizations that were came out of these studies. And again, the main thing is how it impacts the child and the parent relationship, whether it's loving and comfort and trust, or if it's more fear based. And then toward the end of it, we really got into positive parenting. And that's where we kind of stopped things because the
Yeah.
reality is after you went through all of that, we want to get into some practices that you could
Mm.
teach us so that we can move forward.
Man, 5-star review right there. That was a great review. And I just want to say, Jordan, to everyone listening, just a couple of things to get started here. This this podcast, we don't want to produce any type of mom guilt, dad guilt, any type of these feelings like I'm a bad parent or I screwed up my kid. Please don't do that to yourself. Please don't let some silly podcast do that to you because that's a pretty serious thing. I hope no one's beating themselves up over this podcast, Jordan.
I know. I mean, reality, human nature is going to make us do that, but you got to let that wave pass fast. I do it to myself. I'm like, gosh, I really shouldn't have done that. My dad still comes up to me. He's like, man, I'm so sorry. When you were 1 year old, we were at church and I
Oh my
spanked you.
God.
You were embarrassing me. He still apologizes
Wow.
30
Wow.
something years later. And I'm like, Dad,
That's
it's okay,
deep.
man. It's all good. So
Oh my
we're going to go
gosh.
down that route, but we just
Right.
have to know that like we're all learning here.
Yes, we are all learning, and I'm learning too. And one of the things we're discussing here today is I'm inviting you to make a shift into more positive parenting practices and approaches. I'm inviting you to reconsider some of these outdated, um, chaotic, unhelpful practices that maybe they learned from your culture. Maybe you learned them from your parents or your upbringing. And maybe the science now is not there. Like, have you ever heard of the word chancla before, Jordan? Chancla?
Chonkla. Yes, but I don't know where. Chonkla, what
Right.
is
So,
that? I
right, when I
forget.
first started parenting videos, I had all these people commenting to me about chanclas, and they would leave an emoji of a sandal. And they would make jokes about their Filipino,
Oh,
their Asian,
okay.
their Mexican heritage. So I had to Google, man, on Wikipedia, what's
Yeah,
a
that's right.
chancla? I guess it's a well-known thing, especially in Latino cultures, to chancla your kids, which means you
Yes,
spank them with a sandal
right.
hard. And so, yes, I'm encouraging you to put the chanclas down, everybody.
Yeah.
Put the bar soap away. And there's better ways of connecting with our kids' hearts or raising great, obedient, cooperative, moral kids, right?
Yeah. That's good. And I mean, this is going to be hard for some of us to swallow because we've done it for so long. But um, again, I think it's doable, and it's not going
Yeah.
to be like a one-time fixes everything. This is something that
No,
you've
it's a
got to practice and
process.
work on. Yeah,
Well
process.
said. And it is just to, even though I think we're doing a good job of dramatizing this, let me dramatize it even more. Like if someone were to knock on my door right now and say, "Hey, I want you to convert your religion, Sean," or someone knocks on my door and say, "Hey, Sean, I know that you're a highly educated, smart man. In your mid 40s. I just turned 45, but I want you to change your political views." I'll be like, who the hell are you, man?
Yeah.
Like, who the hell are you? Like, get off my doorstep. You're annoying. I'm not changing. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So
So
you're saying that can be similar to parenting
similar
style. Yeah. Totally.
parenting, man. So personal, so important. This is why people get so volatile on my social media videos. Is because I made a lovely, awesome video about patience, about being patient as a parent, and some of the craziest, meanest, weirdest stuff people type on that page. And it's a lovely video about being
Right.
patient. It just
Yeah.
trigger people get triggered, man.
They do. They don't like changing their methods. They don't like someone saying what they're doing is wrong. A lot of people think that these practices are making our kids, what's the word? What's the word that
Soft, weak
soft?
victims,
Yes. Soft.
right?
Victim. Yes,
Whiny,
that's right.
basket case,
Entitled.
mental health,
Right.
entitled. It makes parents weak. This one guy wrote in my comment. I'll have his quote. Like that was a really fun episode. Just like it's like a little revenge. Like I get to finally get back all the people that write mean stuff to me. Like this one guy, right? As soon as you start sharing your feelings with your kids, you've lost the battle already. Like somebody wrote that. I was like, who says that? Like, what does that
Hmm.
mean? Like, if you're not actually like humanizing yourself to your kids, you're not showing them any of your kindness, your gentleness. Like, it's just like, come on, man, open your mind, dude. Come on, old school.
Yeah. I mean, it's harder for guys too. We've got this masculine thing where historically, we hunters and gatherers, and we hunt our prey, and we try to, stalk them in a way that we can overpower them and eventually eat them, right? And so nowadays, we
Mm,
still have this like masculinity in us where we want to compete and we want to
yeah,
win and we want to be the best. And when it comes to toning that down to be more communicative with our kids, there, I think many of us feel like we've lost some certain battle or some kind of credential that you still are hanging over your head when you don't need that.
oh my gosh. Yeah, we'll talk about that and in today's episode. And I want to talk about how fear is driving our poor discipline, how it's often fear which is underneath our strong reactions, our strong punishments, our spankings, our strong groundings, our timeouts, our naughty hair, naughty chairs. And so, all right, let's get into it. So, Jordan, I've got 7 things I want to teach you today. I'm going to start with number 1. And if you were to ask me to make the same episode like a year from now, I'll probably have 7 different things. But I think this is like a beginner's entry to if you did want to make a change in a more positive parenting, how do I do it? Are you ready for this?
Yes, go for
Okay.
it.
Okay. So Jordan doesn't know what I'm about to say. So we're just going to rap about these as we go and talk. The first thing that I want you to think about is to go into this with high amounts of self-regulation, realizing if you want to be a positive parent, if you want to parent the way I parent, if you want to parent the way all these super smart author, psychologists, people that are doing these things, you're going to have to really regulate your own emotions to be the adult in the relationship.
And how do we do that? Because that can be the hardest thing for us. How do we manage our
Mm.
own relationship or our own reactions, our own emotions? Because ultimately, we're trying to teach our kids to do that, but sometimes we can't even do that ourselves.
Well, we've got other podcast episodes on that point. I have my VIP membership to help you with that, to help you with the mindset of parenting, to help you with the emotional regulation. It's tough, man. I mean, we've talked a lot about that, haven't we? I mean, that's like,
Yeah.
of all the topics we talk about, that's got to be towards the top 5. The
Yeah, and
importance.
the answers are in some of the previous podcasts, but I know some people listening might think like, okay, Sean, it's easier said than done. Like how in the
Right.
moment, I'm boiling and these kids are driving me crazy. And how am I supposed to,
For
you know,
sure.
change the way I'm thinking in that moment when I'm just trying to get them to stop whatever they're doing?
Here's a story that I like to teach my clients. And if you ever become one, then you'll actually hear me say this story to you directly. I wasn't planning on telling this, but let me just say this. if I was coaching a whole group of first responders, all right, ER nurses, paramedics, firemen, policewomen, surgeons, do you have anybody in your life that is like that, Jordan?
Yeah,
A
I got
first
some neighbors
responder?
that are first responders or technically nurses. I've got some family that are first responders,
Yeah.
specifically firefighters. So yeah.
So, first of all, shout out to all you people out there. You're heroes. You're amazing. We love you. We need you. You guys, these people do not have regular jobs like we do.
Hmm.
And these are not just regular people. These are people that have like a calling to do some of the most hardest, challenging, most emotional work in the world. Are you with me, Jordan? Have you ever been on
Yeah,
the
and I
scene or
yeah, I
been a
have.
victim or been needed saving or been helped? Have you ever seen anything like this before?
I mean, one time I work sometimes the late shift at work, and I came home. I was in Seattle at the time, and there was a motorcycle driver right in front of me. He ended up getting hit by a drunk driver, like
Oh my
right
God.
in front of me, and ended up dying
Gosh.
right in front of me. And I pulled over to see if there's anything I can do to help. And immediately the first responders showed up, and they were like on it.
On it.
Started chest compressions, started doing
Gosh.
what they need to do. And I was thinking in that moment, I'm like, how do these guys turn that moment of what they're seeing
I
right
know.
now off when they go
I know.
home? Because
I
that is
know.
imprinted in their mind,
Trauma.
and I don't know how they do that.
I I don't know how they do it either, but I have a couple tips that I want to share. So if I was teaching a whole class, and this is a podcast for first responders, here's what I would say. I would say to thrive in this job, you need two types of tools. Two types. Okay, the first type of tool you need is you need tools for your mind. Tools for your mind. Because when you go out there in on your job, oh my gosh, you're gonna see some crazy stuff. You're gonna see bloody people, bloody children, people with metal or glass in them. You're going to see frantic people. You're going to see scared people. You're going to see dead people. You're going to see people who look like your kids, who look like you. You might even see your friends. Some of these people might be aggressive towards you. They might spit in your face. They might call you names. They might turn away. They might make it hard for you to do your job. It's going to be so emotional. You with me, man? You with me?
Yeah, I don't want to be around those people.
Gosh, I don't want to do this job either. That's why
I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do it either. It sounds so hard. It's so underrated what first responders do.
Yeah,
So to thrive in this job, you have to have tools for your mind. You can't let their craziness become your crazy. Their
right.
franticness make you frantic. You can't lose your cool. You've got to be a team player. You've got to realize that you're stepping into chaos and you can't become a part of the chaos. You've got to remember your training.
That's good. My brother was a rescue swimmer, and one of the first things they teach you is how to escape a panicked person. Because when you're saving someone, when they're drowning, they will drown you as well as them. And so you have to really take control and figure that out. That's a good analogy because a lot of us don't look at parenting like that. We're just like, oh, yeah, we can do this. But the reality is, like, we need to be trained for this stuff. And some of us, we're not.
Well, most of us were parents or teachers and never home was a school. So most of us did not receive this training from our parents. And here's a juicy thing. There's people listening to this right now, and metaphorically, they're at the bottom of a pool and they're drowning, and their kid is
Hmm.
drowning, right? Metaphorically. You know what I
Right.
mean by that? Like using that
Yeah.
water metaphor. So like the first responders, they have to learn how to not only keep their cool, but they have to learn how to set emotional boundaries in their mind. They can't bring the chaos home, bring the trauma home. Yes, studies have actually come out that it's actually very interesting about. I've read this psychological report is that it's very healthy for traumatized first responders to, yes, share some of their pain with their spouse or co-parent. Like a soldier back in the old days, they would come and they would say like, no, honey, I can't tell you what I saw over there. They would stuff it. They would bottle it. We know how that works. So now
Hmm.
hopefully they're training these first responders with the modern science of today. It's actually good for them to appropriately, big accent on appropriately, to share that with their spouse. That does make sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would feel more comforting if I didn't bottle it up and I had someone to share that with, especially if I went through a traumatic experience. It's like when we wake up from a scary dream, what do we want to do? We want to share it, right? We want
Yeah.
to share this experience with someone.
Oh my gosh, that's a really good analogy. That's what our kids want to talk to us about. And I mean, it makes me just think about how much I love my wife right now, because no friend, nobody understands what it's like to be me or the pain points that I go through as a man. as a husband, as a friend like her. And I want to be able to share that with her. And that's why I want you to have somebody in your life that you feel close with and you can trust and can comfort you and talk to you and can be there for you in your job as a first responder or a parent, which is where I'm going with this. It's the same thing.
Yeah, that's good. That's
so
good.
because if you can't manage your emotions on the job, then you won't enjoy the job. You won't enjoy the job and you won't be good at the job. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So yes, hopefully you're realizing this is a metaphor for parenting. Why do so many parents hate parenting? Why aren't they enjoying the job? Why are they struggling at the job? Well, because they're not thriving in the first set of tools. Isn't that interesting?
Which are?
Which are, how do we manage our emotions
Yes.
so they don't manage us?
Yes.
How do we
So
have a mindset?
do we ever
first set of tools?
do we ever perfect that, or is that something we're constantly working on as parents? I'm just going to say what I've gone through. I'm constantly working on it as a parent because as my kids get older, we're tested in different ways.
Oh my gosh, constantly. I just dropped my 18-year-old off at the airport just yesterday, and it wrecked me, man. It just wrecked me. I'll tell you about it another time. Yeah, man, she's flying out on a business trip, and it just wrecked me. It brought up so much fear in me, so much emotion. She's 18, 2 months out of high school. So yes, so the first type of tools that first responder needs are tools for the mind. And the second tools, what they need, are actually tools to do their job. How to put somebody into a gurney, how to bandage somebody, how to give them an IV. But if you don't have the first set of tools, the mindset tools, then you will not be able to do your job. If you don't have the first set of tools for the mind, then you will not be good at your job. Doesn't that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. We don't think of parenting like that. And when you compare it to real world examples, it does make sense. And I think that's another reason why we all have to give parents some grace, right?
Yeah, we do. We need to give ourselves grace. It's so hard. And parenting is the most emotional thing that most of us will ever do. Can I get an amen on that?
Amen, brother.
So yes, we have. I can help you one-on-one and a lot of support inside my VIP. If you're looking for more support, or you can find hopefully a local therapist who knows about psychology of parenting, where you can keep listening to this awesome podcast that I get to share with this awesome man. And so the first thing to do is to regulate your own emotions if you want to make the change to positive parenting, because you will not be able to use these tools. Let me bring it all together. You won't be able to do what I'm about to tell you to do, the tools of the job. You won't be able to talk the way I teach you to talk. You don't be able to counsel, to lead family meetings, to have heart talks, to be a good listener, to speak listening, to speak values, to speak truth, to speak identity, to speak morals into your kids, unless you have your mind ready to rock. That makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. So we calm our mind. We're in the middle of a blow up. Something's happening. We maybe need to take two. First thing we got to do though is just regulate our mind. Know where we're at. Are we about to explode? Are we about to react? Do we need to think about what we're going to do?
Before we move on to point 2, can I tell you something interesting about my job? And I want to get your response.
Yeah.
So I work with some really amazing adults. They're my clients. And some of these people are very, very good at their jobs, very successful. You with me?
Yeah.
I mean, they're doctors,
professionals.
Lawyers, they're great moms, they're CEOs, they're famous people. They're just rocking at their jobs. You know what I mean? They're cool, and they're cool cats outside the house.
Okay.
Composed. And yet inside the house, they're just a hot mess. So when I tell them these things, they often tell me things like, yeah, it's just hard, Sean. It's hard for me. You with me so far in this story? And then this is something I tell them. And I think it's really heartwarming. I think it's nice. I think it's true. Can I tell you what I tell them? I tell them.
You say it is hard.
Oh, yeah, I say that. But here's what I also say. I said, I know you can do this. You can do this.
Oh, good. Yeah, you're coaching them.
Do it. You already do it.
Right.
You already regulate your emotions outside your house.
Right.
You're a businesswoman. You're a
CEO. You're a coach.
You're a doctor. Yeah. You're a coach. Yeah. You're an engineer. You're a marketer. You already do it outside your house. There's nothing wrong with you. And so when I help them, like, I think when I say that, it like puts a light bulb on, like, oh, I can do this.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with me. I can do this. Isn't that kind of encouraging? Do you think it's,
It's very encouraging, because can you imagine a doctor on the operating table and it's like, well, as soon as someone flatlines, I just freak out and walk away. I just can't handle it anymore. Right? No. You're in the moment. You stay
Right.
cool as a cucumber, and you continue to push through. That's good.
Well, there's one man who should be able to do this. It would be a man who's on live TV on the Weather Channel.
Jeez.
I mean, can you imagine being on live TV, everybody? Jordan goes live on national television. How scary is that? But you do it. You manage your emotions and you show up. So you could do this.
You're right. That's great advice. And we all need that coach in our corner, because there's a lot of times we think we can't do it. That's so true.
What's harder for you when you're in a really, really bad mood and you don't want to go on TV? You don't want to put on a fake smile. You're pissed. You're hurt. You're worried, and you are on the air. Boom.
Yeah.
Jordan's on TV. Or showing up for your kids when you're pissed, you're angry, you don't want to do this in the privacy of your home. What's harder for you to flip the switch?
Dude, that's good. It's harder. It's harder at home. It's harder at home. It's definitely harder at home.
Mm-hmm.
There's more to it. There's more meaning. There's more emotions. There's just more, right? And it makes it that much more difficult. We can do it, especially if we use the tools that we use in our everyday life that you just pointed out. You're right. I can do it. I gotta maybe use the same tool of okay, boom, you're on, and do that. But it's, I don't know, takes more.
Well, yeah, my mind game that I struggle with is I help people with positive parenting every day, and I have a podcast about it. And
dude, I bet that's hard.
And then sometimes I don't show up, man.
Right.
And I'm like, what the heck is wrong with
me? And then everyone's like, you hypocrite.
Right. Well, I said to myself, they might say it in my videos, but yeah, just sad. Like, why did I say that? I know better. I could have done different. It's like just disappointed in myself, man, because I still do. I'm not perfect. I struggle with some reactions that called negative body language, sarcasm, avoidance. My tone can be very harsh. I can yell sometimes. Like, I'm in this with you guys. We're all in this together.
You know, when you go to the doctor and they check you to make sure you're healthy, and one of the things they do is they tap your knee for your, what is that called? Reactions or reaction time. You know, when your knee jumps.
All I do is parenting, man. I don't know nothing else. I don't know.
Okay. When's the last time you went to the doctor, Sean?
Oh, you
okay,
don't
turn and cough. No, okay.
Yes,
well, you need to go get your your daily checks.
No,
so
I don't know what that's called, but yes,
I can't remember what it's called. But what I'm saying is, sometimes I feel like our reactions are ingrained to us to the core. You sit on that doctor's office and they hit your knee, and it could test your reaction time. It's going to happen, even if you think as hard as you can. I don't want to do this. It's going to happen. So sometimes I think even a master like yourself, it's ingrained to us to act this way for whatever reason that is, to get upset, to throw the cold shoulder, to say things we don't mean. I don't know why. And we can try and perfect it. But the reality is sometimes it's still going to come out.
Well said. I have like 2 chapters about that in my book. Some of my literary mentors call that your imprint. Think of a print on your thumb. It's like, this is the print that we've been giving through our nature and nurture. And now what we're doing by showing up as adults today is we're trying to change our default folder. We're trying to change our imprint. We're trying to bring healing so that we're not always so tempted to react this way or prone to react, which leads us to point number 2. How to make the shift into more positive parenting, to stop the timeouts, the spankings, the groundings, the harsh consequences, the timeouts, is have a mindset to stopping reactions and stopping consequences. Can I explain?
Yes, because that's exactly what we want to go to. If you don't do this, I'm going to give you a consequence.
Right. So what we are all prone to do is we're all prone to react, to do our reactions. I've done a lot of teaching about that. I give all my clients an assessment about what your reactions are, right? But what so many people now do is they're just now prone to try not to react, but then they just go to a consequence. Okay, I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to lecture. I'm not going to blame. So I'm just going to do a consequence. So it's like you just went from step 1 to consequences, and there's a lot of stuff you can do in the middle here. Jordan, a lot.
Okay.
So would that be scary for you as a dad to move that into your mindset, to be like, okay, let's listen, let's try to do what Sean says. Let's give him a chance. Let's try it out. This will be
No,
the time I really
trying it
want
out
to do
is
consequence, but let me hold
right.
back my consequences. Even though I want to
It's
do it right now,
the
I want to
reason why
not
we
do
want to
it.
do consequences is because it seems like it works. If I threaten to take away tech, Xbox, iPad, whatever it is, for a
Yeah.
certain amount of time, it's immediate reaction. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Right? It's like, okay, I fixed that problem. I can move on. And
Yes.
so we go to these consequences because we can almost see it working ASAP. But the question is it really working or is it a band aid?
You brought that up. Part one of this, is it working? You know what it does work? It makes consequences normally makes the parent feel better. It gives the parents a sense of control, power, and it gives them a sense of peace in their heart because they're like have control of the situation. Their kid's on the timeout. Their
True.
kid's grounded. I feel better. I feel like a good parent. I'm doing a good job teaching him.
Yeah.
He got the chancla. You can't let him do this. You got to chancla her.
And we how many problems do we have put on our table a day as parents? Leave your job aside. You have problems thrown at you all the time from your kids. So it's like, I'm going to throw this consequence out there and I'm going to solve this problem and move on because I got 30 other problems I got to handle.
Exactly.
So sometimes it's like, let's put a bow on it, figure it out. Okay, you're grounded. 1 week, good. That problem's done. What's next? You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. Here's a juicy question. Do you think it's possible that for many parents, even listening to this, their forms of consequences are actually really selfish? It's for them and not for the child. It's for them to feel better in their own ego, their own fears, their own anger and stress. What do you think about that? Do you think that's possible?
So I do. And my next question to you is, if that's the case, then what if I brought it up as a discussion with my children? Hey, you did this. What do you think the consequences should be?
Ooh.
And we go through a conversation of what they think the consequences should be based on their actions.
That leads me a great transition to point number 3. I learned point number 3 from the woman who actually taught me positive parenting. The first time I was ever exposed to positive parenting was by this genius woman called Dr. Laura Markham. She is the author of 2 very famous books. I recommend you read them. You can find her on her blog, Aha Parenting. And the first time I read her book, I was blown away. I was like, what did I just read? What kind of hocus pocus gypsy stuff is
That's
this?
right.
No discipline, no yelling. What do you mean? Freaking that talking to your kids? No consequences? What are you raising a bunch of soft Californians, Laura?
That's right. That's exactly right.
It was so weird and it was mind blowing. But here's what she taught. One of the chapters in her book goes like this. Here's point number 3. Coaching, not controlling.
Coaching, not controlling. Let's coach the situation by, so by what?
Flesh it out. No, you flesh it out.
Okay.
You flesh it out.
Coach the situation.
Without reading her book, I've incorporated all of her stuff.
Okay, let's go through my example real quick.
Yeah.
All right. One kid hits another. All right, come here, you two. We're going to talk about your consequences. We told you not to hit. You guys continue to hit each other. Since you are not listening and not respecting each other, what do you think the consequences should be? Well, I think maybe we should just go to bed early. Okay, well, what about you? Well, I think maybe we should not have TV for a day. Okay, do we feel like that is enough? From based on what you guys have done, we've told you how many weeks in a row now. Do you think this is enough for the consequences? I don't know. Yeah, and then would this be a sense of coaching? Am I coaching my kids in this situation where I'm like trying to figure out a resolution with the whole group?
Well,
I know you don't believe in consequences. I'm just saying in this example.
No, I do believe in consequences. Absolutely. I believe in emotional consequences and natural consequences. We'll get to that soon.
Okay.
You lost me with a little bit because you started to emotion coach your kids, is what Dr. John Gottman says. But in the very first opening sentences, what I heard you say, I don't know if you meant to say it, is
what I say.
What are your consequences going to be? So
Right. I'm asking them. So
right,
I'm
but no, that's
oh,
not,
you're saying I should
that's
coach
not,
them to come up with consequences.
no,
That
we're
I
not talking about consequences at all. This is about coaching, not controlling. Okay, let me take
But
your
I'm
metaphor.
coaching them to come to a conclusion together. I was trying to coach the
You
setting.
were, but I didn't like the way you did it because it was
Okay.
consequence. It's like this. How would the basketball team respond if this is why I didn't like what you said, but I like
Yeah.
what you said because it got us to talking about it. How would the basketball team respond if the coach says, "Okay, guys, you played really poorly last week. You didn't work well as a team. You were fighting with each other. So, what do you guys want your consequences to be?" Would a coach talk like that?
No,
No.
that's a good example.
That's what
Right.
you just did,
You're
right?
right.
Right? That's weird. That's
Yeah.
not how
Yeah.
coaches talk.
Right.
So you
But
tell
the
me,
coaches tell you, they lay down the law. All right, you're going to run 16 or 60 suicides because you guys blew it. Go.
some coaches do that. They jump to suicides, which is the name you have to explain a suicide.
Okay,
Liners.
good call.
When a basketball team is running and they have to touch lines, there's
Yes,
a
back and
punishment or
forth and back and
discipline,
forth and back and forth and back
running
and forth. Yeah.
laps.
Right.
Yes. So so all right, let me do take two, because you've had some great sports coaches in your life. You and your wife did a lot of sports. You played varsity football. What would a good coach say?
On the bench. On the bench.
What would a good coach say to his team? Emotionally regulated, emotionally connected, caring coach who wanted to produce a good team, who a team that just fought, had infighting, and they fought, and they did not do well, and they lost the game.
He
And
would
now
highlight where we went, what we did good. This is where we were strong, but this is where we blew it. And this is where we need to work on to get better. Because if you guys can't get this better, we're not going to win next game.
So I agree. You could probably answer that question 100 to 1,000 different ways. I agree with you. One of the things a coach would do would be highlight the positivity. Why would a good coach do that?
So that the team doesn't think that they're just a bunch of
Okay,
worthless players.
good. All right, I'm going to keep interviewing you because I think you're really good at this. What else would a good coach do to address his team after a big loss?
He would,
Or her a big loss?
or he or she would give I'm just thinking of some of the best, coaches out there. And Coach Boone from Remember the Titans, he was the best.
Oh,
But he
Denzel
always won.
Washington.
Oh, he's so good.
That's a great movie. Great
Based on a
sports
real
movie.
coach, by the way. Based on a real coach.
Dude, some sports movies are
they're so good.
They're so inspirational. They show you the best side of humanity. Please continue.
A lot of these coaches bring the game back to life, and they bring the game back to life situations and life circumstances. But ultimately, what the coach is going to do is have you leave with your head held high, so you feel like there's hope at the end, and that everyone's willing to perform better instead of forcing them to do better. They're willing to do better on their own behalf.
I'm really enjoying listening to you right now. I'm really into this. You're really good at this. Yes. Can you do another one? What else? You're really good at this. I could do this all day. Tell me when you.
I'm just going through experiences I've had with my coach because we lost a lot. And the reason we lost is because they kept me on the bench. Dang you, coaches. Put me in, coach, and we would have won.
I did not have a lot of good sports coaches, so I can tell you what bad coaches, but you're good at this. Do at least one more for me. What else would a good sports coach do after a tough loss where the team was infighting? What else comes to mind?
I feel like, I don't know. I feel like I gave you the best, some of the best speeches that I've heard.
Yeah. Would a coach, okay, let me take it from here. Would a coach just shame you, bring shame upon you? You should be
No, and that's
ashamed
why I
of
was saying he would
yourself.
try to
This
leave
is
you with your head held
ridiculous.
high. Yes.
You are the worst. You guys are losers. You got no reason to even play. Why even on this team? I mean, there are some coaches that coach that way, and maybe there's a time and a place for that tough love coaching, right? Maybe, who knows? But right, that's, especially when we're talking about children, because this is a parenting podcast, right? Why is that important to leave your players? For a coach to leave their players feeling connected to the coach, connected to the team, connected to the mission? Why do you think that's so important and have their heads held high? I agree with you, but why?
I think because if you coach the opposite way, you're now coaching these kids to perform almost in fear so they don't get yelled at again, rather than perform out of a willingness to want to win so that it can be for the greater good, not
Mm.
just to make the coach happy, but to move the team forward. You want to be a part of
Yeah.
something bigger.
I'm going to give you Jordan and I are going to give you some examples of coaching, not controlling right now. Um, and it's really a shift, because right now, a lot of you that are listening to this, you are the coaches of a team, but you're not wearing a coach's jersey. You're wearing a black and white referee's jersey.
Mm-hmm.
You're not a coach in your family. You're a referee. You're not a coach. You're a controller. You haven't spent the time really emotion coaching your children, and you spend your time being the referee, breaking up fights.
Mm-hmm.
You you spend the time blowing the whistle, and nobody likes that whistle. It's freaking annoying. Or for some of you listening to this, you've been so passive. You have not stepped up. You've been passive. You've been permissive, and you're not wearing a coach's jersey. You're sitting on the sidelines in a lawn chair under an umbrella, and your team needs you. Your team needs you to step up, to be present, to be strong. And this is who we're talking to right now. We're talking to hurting and confused parents, Jordan, who some of them are nodding their heads like, that's me. I have been the referee. I'm not a coach. Others have been, I am a controller. I control through yelling and through threats, and I'm bad at stepping into the tension. And some parents are like, yeah, that is me. I'm on the other, I'm sitting on the sidelines with a Capri Sun in my hand. I'm not really involved. Do
Mm-hmm.
you feel like this is?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I've come to the point where, excuse me, uh, we'll be doing stuff as a family. And, I've learned a lot to give more power to my kids in a way that, they're their own people. And I'm just trying to let them understand where I stand so that
Yeah.
they do things on their own, which make me happy, right?
Yeah,
Like
man. Yeah.
my kids will ask about cigarettes and they'll
Mm-hmm.
ask about tattoos and whatever it is. And I'll say, hey, listen, when you're older, you're going to have, you can do whatever you want, but I'm going to
Yeah.
tell you why I don't do it. I'm going to tell you why I don't really want you to do it. And I'm going to really get into like some of the reasonings behind it so that they can see as like, I'm not telling you not to do it just because I'm a parent and I can say so, because then that's
Yeah.
going to make them want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm giving
Yeah.
them the choice and the understanding of where I'm coming from. I'm
Right.
like, listen, you're going to do what you're going to do, but I
Right.
would ultimately like you to do this because it's going to make you a better person.
Man, think about this. How can we all improve our coaching, our emotion coaching, not controlling? What power? Because a coach has limited power of his players. A good coaches, they know how to speak their players' language. Here's a juicy question. It's really hard to answer, but it's going to be hard for me to answer it, but I'm going to ask it. I want you all to answer this that are listening. And Jordan, I want you. Our role is to be connected coaches on the sidelines with our kids, calling timeouts, calling the team over, giving them pep talks, helping them solve problems, teaching them how to solve problems, teaching them good things. Sounds good to you, right? This is what we're doing here on
Yes.
this. Okay. But we
Right.
all have a temptation. Some of us are tempted to become the referees. Referees are not emotionally involved. They are just whistleblowers. They're annoying. They just break up fights. Some of us are tempted to be the passive parent on the sidelines. You know what? Kids will be kids. It's too
Kids will be
stressful.
kids.
It's too stressful for me to get involved. Some of us, people that probably don't listen to this podcast, some of these parents, they just leave the field. They abandon their family.
You're right.
They leave the field. They
Yeah,
leave
they're
their
gone.
players all alone,
Mm-hmm.
and they make up excuses.
Yep.
That really breaks my heart just saying that out loud.
I know,
And
me
thinking
too.
about that.
Sad.
It breaks my heart thinking too that that's kind of what my dad, did to me at age 12. He left, and he was gone, and it hurts to think about that. Yep. Let me think. Where was I?
You were about to ask a question.
And then, yeah.
A
Then there's
question we
these
can't answer.
the, yeah. So, of these three scenarios that I just, made up, which are you more tempted to be in your worst moments? For me, I'll go.
Referee.
A sideline parent. You're the
You're a
referee.
sideline parent.
Tempted to be a
Actually, you
sideline.
know what? I'm both.
Yeah.
Well, let me think. One, I'm a referee. And two, one of the examples you gave were the passive parent. Where you're like, kids will be kids.
Mm-hmm.
I want to take that because I don't want to deal with it.
I don't want to deal with it either. It's
Yeah.
hard.
It's hard. Awkward.
Stressful.
Stressful.
Unfun.
Tiring.
This is why parents are the referee. Because they want control. Referees have all the control in the game. They can kick people out. They can ground them. They can give penalties. They have all the power. And they are loud with that whistle. That's why parents become referees. That's why some parents are tempted to leave the game. And that's why some parents are tempted to just eat ho-hos on the sideline. Right? Okay. Step 4. This is where the storytelling comes in. You ready for step 4?
Yes.
All right. After having a mindset of self-regulation, a mindset of avoiding consequences and reactions. After number 3, coaching, controlling, here's what we do next. We prioritize heart talk connections. Heart talk connections. If you don't know what they are, you got to listen to other podcasts or join me in my membership. Heart Talks is where it's at. When you hear Heart Talks, what do you think of?
So I was thinking of trying to bring it into your coaching analogy. And
Okay.
for me, I can't tell if a heart talk is supposed to happen after or if it's supposed to happen before, or if it's supposed to happen during, right? And so I think there's different kinds of heart talks. For me,
Mm-hmm.
my favorite is coaching them. Let's say we have an event coming up,
Okay.
coaching them upon the event, prior to the event, letting them know what's coming. I don't know if I'd consider that a heart talk, but it's like, hey, let's talk about this and my expectations and what your expectations. Is there anything that makes you feel uncomfortable? How long do we want to be there? Blah, blah, blah. Setting everything up. So when it's game day, we all have our playbooks ready to go and we're ready to rock.
Buddy. Yeah. Like you alluded to a famous movie coach, Denzel Washington's character in that one movie. Do you
Remember the
think that
Titans.
do you think that these good sports coaches, do they do a lot of this heart talk, lovey-dovey, talky type stuff in the middle of a game? Or do you think it happens after the game, before the game, on a timeout, or during a practice?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Because
It's leading up. It's reflecting after.
right.
It's definitely not during.
The time to thrive as a first responder, the time to get ready to be a great first responder is not in the middle of a crisis. The time to really reach your kid's heart is not in the middle of a crisis. The time to have a great heart talk is not in the middle of a crisis. The time to have a great heart talk is not when your kid is following you in the house, asking you, why? Just tell me why. Why couldn't you give it to me? Why? That's not the time. There's a time and a place for everything. Teaching moments are beautiful. And teaching moments, they barely ever happen in the moment, my dog.
Mm-hmm.
Coaching,
that's because we're probably not ready to do it and they're not ready to listen.
Right. Controlling can happen anytime.
Yeah.
Coaching does not happen at any time. It takes a mindful, wise sage of a coach to thrive with good coaching.
So going back to, self-regulation, let's say there is a moment, the moment is something stressful. We can't coach in the moment because we know that party's not ready to listen. I'm not ready to give it. So how do we address that specific moment in time to stop whatever is happening or to address whatever is happening, but not coach in a way? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that would be maybe for a whole nother episode.
Because that almost is a referee moment where it's like, I got to stop everything right now.
You know what I found is that if your kids are like 10 and under, you're definitely going to have those moments where you have to step in and say no. You have to be the parent, right? But what I have found is that if your kid is
more sugar, I'm just going to pour sugar on the ground. More.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
You're going to take the sugar, or you're going to step in. Or if one child is hitting another child, of course you've got to get physical. You can't let that happen. Of course, there's moments. We're not going to go through a list of like, here's top 25 moments you've got to be a referee. That's stupid. That's not what we're doing here. We're going deeper. That's somewhere on the surface. But what I have found is that for most kids 10 and up, those moments are the response to those moments is you can wait. You can wait. You can wait until the time is right to address your student, your child, right?
Yeah.
Coaching, there's a time and a place for everything. Doesn't that kind of make sense? Doesn't that make common sense?
Yes.
Right? But this is where the fear comes in. And I told you we chatted about this really briefly, is fear. Parents don't want to wait for these moments because they're afraid. Parents don't want to coach. They want to control because they're afraid. Their fear is driving their parenting. Do you connect with that at all, or do you want me to
Well,
give some
yeah. I
examples?
mean, the reason why a lot of us are fearful while we parent is because we see the real world, and honestly, the real world scares the heck out of me.
Mm,
And to know that my kid is going to be in that, I'm
yeah.
trying to protect them as much as possible because of that fear.
Let's let's share some stories here that bring this to life. I actually just have a brand new story that I want to share. You ready for this?
Yeah,
So my 18-year-old daughter just got her first job. She already got a raise. She already got a promotion. And she got invited to go on a business trip, a sales trip to do training where she's training other people in a city like 500 miles away, 1,000 miles away called Denver. And
yeah. You
so,
talked a little bit about this in the last episode, which is
so,
amazing, by the way. She's only
so
18, but that that is congratulations. But yeah, as a
it's
parent,
really
gosh, you got to
wrecking
be.
me though, man. It's
Has
like,
she ever flown by herself before? This is crazy.
no, no, but she's
Oh
never
my
stayed in an
gosh.
Airbnb with a bunch of people in their 20s before. She's 18.
Oh,
She's never, she's never been in an Airbnb with a bunch of people in their 20s drinking alcohol before with boys and
yeah.
girls, guys, people. I don't know who these people are. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, like, it just wrecked me, man. Like, oh my gosh, is she safe? Is
Right.
she ready for this? It also made me wonder,
Did the thought cross your
am I,
mind like, should I just not allow her to go? Right? That had to have crossed your mind because that's what would cross every
Uh,
dad's mind.
yeah, no, not for me. I knew like this is a rites of passage. Other things did come on my mind though, but no, like she's ready, man. She's ready for this. It's just so scary. Like just to be vulnerable with you. Um, the alcohol really scares me.
Yeah.
Like, is she going to be around people who are drinking? Where is she with drinking? Is she going to give in to temptation? You know what I mean? It's scary, right?
I mean,
This alcohol is so
I was
scary.
18. We were all 18 once. Some of us, maybe right around that age listening to this podcast. I don't know, but at that age, you get a lot thrown at you. You're an adult. You can vote. You have
I know.
responsibilities. You're legal now. You can't drink because you're not
I
21
know.
yet, but yet it's all around you. It's happening everywhere. Yeah, man, it's tough.
And I haven't shared this with her yet. I'm going to. Um, I'm going to have a heart talk with her about this because I want her to know me. I want her to know what I'm thinking. Um, but the biggest thing that I've been wrestling with is it's hard to say out loud is um, am I a good dad? Did I do enough? Did I teach her enough? Like, is she ready for this? Did I leave anything out? Like, if she fails, is it my fault? Did I screw her up? Right? Like, it's just been like hard on me, man, this last 7 days, like processing this, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
it's
I mean, I
almost,
don't know how you're teaching her. I mean, we could get into different methods on this, whether, you know, do some parents introduce it in the house prior as we get older to so it's not a gung-ho experience. And I mean, there's studies out there that talk about all that. You probably read all
yeah,
that stuff, but I've got experiences with kids who were held off from all of that, and then they got to legal age and they
I
went
know,
crazy and they went off the deep end. You're like,
I
what in the
know,
world,
I know, it's
so I don't know
scary.
what the right answer is, and I could see why that's going through your mind. That's tough.
Like most parents, when your kid is moving out for the first time, like going off to college or getting their job, it's like you have at least some days or weeks or months to emotionally prepare. For me,
Right.
it's like my daughter's living in my house,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, like, I'm going to Portland,
Yeah.
and or going to, or
Yeah,
I'm
Denver.
going to Denver. Well, she's in Portland right now, man. I just took her to the airport to Portland, so she came home for 12 hours, and I took her to the airport, and it's like this shock, and so some of the fear came out, and this is what happened was, here we are. I'm driving her to the airport yesterday, and in the first 3 minutes of the conversation, it's kind of
Oh no.
funny, kind of
What'd you
sad.
do?
I just started asking her about alcohol, and she didn't like it. She's like, "Really, Dad? Really? Like, you're already talking to me about alcohol?" And she did
Right.
not like it. And I was like,
That's like you dropping her off at the boyfriend's house and bringing up the birds and the bees. And you're like, oh my gosh, seriously?
it's like 5 minutes into the call, and like it was a nice long drive. We had an awesome, awesome, deep conversation for 50 minutes. It was beautiful. It was like out of a movie. It was like a dad's dream come true. Just talking with her heart to heart about where she's at and sharing life and sharing how much I love her and proud of her. and I prayed with her before we sent her off out of the car to go into the airport. It was like, it was for me, man.
That's
It was,
great.
but it was like, I'm just wrestling with my fears, man, like we all are. And I'm just sharing how I'm trying to coach and not control an 18-year-old
Yeah,
woman. And I'm just being vulnerable right now, man.
that's
It's
hard.
hard.
That's hard,
I made some
especially at that
mistakes and I
age.
spoke out of fear. Some of the fear
Yeah,
came out and it leaked out with the alcohol stuff. And she's making really great choices with that topic, but I'm still scared.
right. And I remember you sharing with us the talk you had with one of your daughters about going to a concert, and you introduced storytelling. Do you think maybe a story would have been better in this situation if you were to turn back the time stamp?
There's a time and a place for everything, but yes, I did tell some short stories that she enjoyed about what it was like for me,
Yeah,
getting out of my parents' house and
yeah.
how I, was just, and she really liked my stories. I'll tell you them another time. Let's
Good.
move on.
No, that's
Let's do
good.
a
That's
couple more
good.
stories. Like, here's an example of coaching, not controlling. One of my clients just told me this about 2 hours ago in my VIP membership. He said, "You know what, Sean? I have a success story. My son asked me to change his therapy appointment to 7:15 in the morning, and so because he wanted to go to a camp." So I called the therapist, and the therapist was like, "Well, that's pretty early, but yeah, I'll do that for you." So to accommodate this young man, he had a 7:15 therapist appointment. So guess what this good, loving dad did? He changed the appointment and he woke his son up. I don't know what time. It's probably, let's say, 6:45 in the morning. And he said, "Hey, buddy, time to get up and go to your therapy." And guess what the son did, man? Guess what he did?
He didn't wake up.
He said, "Dad, I don't want to go. I just want to
Oh,
sleep
and
in."
this was the kid's idea?
Yeah, man.
Oh my goodness.
And so, I mean, dude, that's parenting right there. That's like every parent. Like, we all experience that
Right.
crap. You bend over backwards, and so now you're getting your buttons pushed. So what is the daddy going to do? Coaching or controlling? Can I tell you what he said?
You
Well,
rip the sheets off, you get the pan and the wooden spoon, you start banging it together as loud as possible. Get out of this freaking bed.
get out of here. What are you
Right.
talking about? Get your
Right.
butt up. You don't get up, you're not going to camp. You're not
That's
going
right.
to camp.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
I do this for you. You're so selfish.
Right.
That's what's going through my head.
I didn't want to change the appointment. I had to beg him to change the therapy appointment.
Oh,
I had to buy
shaming
him,
him.
blah, 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 just to get him to do it. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Shaming, lectures, pep talks. Some parents would go the other end, people pleasing. "Oh, okay, honey. It's good for you to get your sleep. Okay. I'll just pay the $175 for this
Mhm.
expensive therapist. Sorry, he didn't feel like going, Mr. Therapist." Well, the
Right.
therapist is like, right? So
Right.
so the dad said this, "You know what? Before I started working with you, I would have definitely gone to command and control. I would have done my reactions. But here's what I did instead. I sat and I talked with him. I'm just paraphrase what this dad said. He said, "You know what?" I just said, "You know what, son, I really think you should go. I actually talked to your therapist, and he's waking up early for you, and he's got kids too. So that must be hard for him to wake up early, and he cares about you. But that's why he agreed to meet even earlier than his normal business hours. And I think it'd be really hard for him if you don't show up. And it would be hard for me too." I'm just paraphrasing what this dad
No,
said.
but that's exactly what they need to hear. They need to know the other side of it. Like a lot of people, you have a time to do something. Show up at work, 9 o'clock. Show up at the wedding. At the wedding, at this time. And there are people who are late. There are people that are early, and there are people that are on time. And one of the reasons why, I try to make a vow to never be late is because I feel worse about wasting other people's time, right? Like I don't want to waste other people's time because of what they have to go through to accommodate me. I know what I have to go through, but it's important for kids to know this because they don't understand this. When you're a kid, the world revolves around you. You don't understand that other things have to happen for everything to line up.
Yeah. So this young person, he's not thinking about the therapist's feelings. He's in bed. He's half asleep, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the dad really showed up with coaching, not controlling. And he really spoke from his heart to his son's heart. And good news, the boy went to therapy.
That's great.
And to camp. No fighting, no yelling, no people pleasing, no rescuing.
Amazing. Because the reality is this isn't just a kid problem. Think about all those people who made like New Year's resolutions. Like, I'm going to go to the gym every day for the next 52 weeks, right?
Yep.
You set it for 6 a.m. You got your trainer. You wake up and you're like, ugh, I don't feel like it. I don't feel
Yes.
like going today
Yeah.
because that's
Yeah.
that's real life. Well,
That's real
yeah, you're
life.
right. That's real
You
life.
well said. It's real life. We don't always want to do the things that we're supposed to do, or even we signed up. So let alone our children. So what do we do in that? Do we control them or do we process this with them?
When
That's what
we
you're
go
talking about.
every once
Coach
in a
them.
while, we'll go to visit my wife's grandmother, right?
Okay.
And so it's my kid's great great grandmother. And every time we go, my wife does such a great job with saying, "Hey, here are my expectations going into
Mm,
this," and she'll lay it out. Listen, grandmother's really old. We don't know how much time we have left with her. I
yeah.
expect you to be in your best behavior. If I
Yes.
ask for a photo, I'd love to have a photo. I don't know how many of these we're going to have left. This could be the last time. We don't know. And that way it gives them an idea of like, oh, I can't just brush this off and we'll do it next time because we don't know if there's going to be next time. And we want you to
Yeah.
be good so that, this is a happy experience and a great memory for you and for her.
Oh,
And it
well
works out really
said.
well, which is great.
So yeah, in that story, it's another great example of your wife taking the time, and we're talking about time. We're talking about like a minute to five
Yeah, not
minutes, these
long.
conversations, just
Right.
to really take the time to get in touch with your heart. It's from your heart, it's not from your head. You want to tell your kid what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what makes you feel proud, what makes you concerned, which makes you confused, why you feel disconnected, why you feel shocked, why you feel uncertain. You want to help humanize yourself to your kids. That is how good coaching happens. Coaching, not controlling. And that's how we build this heart talk connection. And it doesn't just happen with speaking, it happens with listening. We have a whole podcast about that, about how to really have such amazing listening. You really hear your kid's heart. And if they shut down, if they say, I don't know, or if they don't want to talk to you, there's some good skills in there. There's some good tools on how to draw that out. You can get any kid to talk with you, open up. You just need the right tools, and I'd love to give them for you. So here's how one of the ways that this has worked in our home is just like any home that has siblings. One of the pain points in our home has been the sibling fighting, the meanness, right? They argue about things. Sound familiar, everybody?
Yeah.
So the way we have solved that problem and will continue to address it is through family meetings. And in these family meetings, my wife Danielle and I, we share our hearts. We get our kids to share their hearts. And what do? Do we control them? No. Coaching, not controlling. I put on my coach's jersey and I coach the team. How are we as a team? Because we're all connected in this. How one sibling affects another sibling, it affects all of us. So, how can we as a team come together to solve this problem? And that is one of the great things that come out of the patience of positive parenting.
I love that because then everyone has a voice. Everyone has a voice.
Everyone has a voice. I don't know if I had a voice growing up. I don't know if my
Yeah, I don't know
parents
if I even had an option, but I mean, I'm sure I did. I don't, we didn't do a lot of heart talks. There were some though. They were all good.
I don't think
I
my
have no
parents ever
qualms.
taught me how to talk. So I don't think I did, you know? Or I
Yeah.
don't know if they ever invited me to have a heart talk. My dad
Now, if
was
you've
there.
seen your parents hurt, like if your
Yeah.
parents are hurt, I remember
Yeah.
maybe that my mom was hurt for whatever reason, that it made me more willing to obey because I didn't want her to be hurt.
Yeah. We talked
You know,
about that. Your mom, some moms, it's like your kids only respond to you when they see you like really, really angry or
vulnerable.
rageful or
Mm,
really, really vulnerable. Well, why?
yeah,
Well, because in those moments you are successfully helping your kids see your humanity and they care.
yeah,
What that means for you is you've got to do a better job. All of us have got to do a better job helping your kids see your heart without those extreme outbursts, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
you can do that. And
yeah.
I'm trying to give us the tools. Let's move on to number 5 out of the 7. Now, number 5 out of the 7 is something that we're not going to spend too much time on this episode here today because it's so good. It's so beautiful. And I don't want to rush it. And it's when I talk about action step number 5 is to repair ruptures, rupture repair. If you want to move into positive parenting, this is a skill you've got to become very skilled at doing and teaching and leading in your home. How to repair ruptures, because many, many, many parents who practice positive parenting, Jordan, or gentle parenting, their kids are not doing well. Their kids are jerks. They're
Yeah.
selfish, they're
Yeah.
undisciplined, and they walk all over these gentle parents.
Right.
Why? Well, because the parents
Because they
might be
can.
good at talking from their heart, but we're always teaching people how they want to be treated, because you're right, because they can. Because the
Yeah.
parents are not
They
showing
allow
up
it.
with their humanity. They're allowing it, and they're not asking their kids to repair the ruptures,
Mm-hmm.
to make things right. It's a huge gap that's missing in so many homes.
Yeah, and I think this is also one of the big reasons why it's so good to have, just the idea of two-parent homes, because there is a dynamic between one parent versus the other, and it's almost like the good cop, bad cop thing. And sometimes you need both parents to see both sides, so the kids have a
Yeah, buddy.
well-rounded, home life.
Yeah, we'll do more teaching on how to make amends. And it is something you've got to teach in your house. Think of it this way: is your kid ever going to take class on conflict communication, on how to make amends, on how to earn trust, how to keep trust, how to care for somebody who's hurting, how to rebuild trust when it's broken, how to reconcile, how to keep their word? No. So who is going to teach them these things? Well, for better or worse, we're already teaching these things to our kids. So to thrive in positive parenting, you've got to become skilled at helping your kids to make amends and repairing ruptures, and teach them the beauty of these things. Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to number 6. Something you actually have talked about even in this episode. Instead of just jumping to consequences, instead I invite you to foreshadow consequence. If you want to use the word threat, go for it. I don't care. It's just a word. You can say, look, if we can't work this out, if we can't build trust in this area, then this is what we're going to have to do. I'm going to have to give you these consequences. I don't want to give you them, but I can't just sit back and like continue this pattern. Here's another way it might sound, Jordan. Say, you know what? I'd rather us have a heart talk about this. I don't want to talk to you. Okay, but I really want to work this out together. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. Okay, I'll honor your boundaries. I won't force you to talk, but let me know when you're ready. I'll never be ready. I'll
Mm-hmm.
never be ready.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then 5 minutes passes, an hour passes, 5 hour passes, a day passes. Hey, mom, dad. Hey, I love you so much. Hey, can you buy me this thing off Amazon? If you buy them that thing off Amazon, what messages are you sending them?
Oh, I love you so much, and you love me. Everything's happy and perfect, and we appreciate each other, and everything's gonna be great.
Yeah. Yeah. You'd be teaching your kids a lot of toxic things. Like when you invite a child to make amends, to work on a relationship, to build trust, and that child doesn't want to repair or doesn't want to make amends, what do? You go to action step number 7. You say you foreshadow consequences. You don't do consequences yet. Remember, we're trying to hold them back. So I don't want to use consequences, but if this doesn't work out between you and your screen, if we can't build trust between you and your screen, well, then I'm going to have to step in and make some changes to your screen arrangement. It might sound like this. Look, I really don't want to micromanage you with your homework. I want to be able to trust you that you're doing the work you need to do to get the grades that we expect of you. I want to work with you. I want to give you support. But if you can't work with us, if you don't want to do what we need you to do, well, then we're going to have to step in and we're going to have to give you some consequences. See, does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
Does that sound loving to you?
Yeah, it sounds like you're coming to the table and providing an option to give the other party, the kid in this instance,
Yeah.
a voice and the decision. Ultimately, you're not forcing anything, but you're like, hey, listen,
Yeah.
if we can't do this, then consequences, and so then it's up to them.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to do it, or fine, give me the consequences.
Yeah. Like if you were at a job and your boss didn't like what you were doing or you were underperforming, would you prefer your boss just to surprise you and give you consequences, or rather have the patience to work with you
Mm-hmm.
to try to avoid those consequences?
Right.
And there's a
That's
time and a
exactly
place
right.
for consequences. Some of the best reasons we are the way we are is because of those consequences we had to endure. You with me?
Yep.
And so when you foreshadow consequences, what leads us to the last thing, which we'll just spend a couple minutes on, is if it needs to do positive parenting, then you give proper emotional consequences and natural consequences. What are your
What
thoughts
is
on
an
that?
emotional consequence?
The short version is this, is that um, if your child is treating you like garbage, not making amends, and they ask you for Starbucks or Amazon, and if you give them that Starbucks or Amazon, what message would you be sending that child?
That you're okay with whatever they just did
Mm-hmm.
previously,
Right.
or that you don't care.
Right. That you don't care. That you're emotionally fine.
Yeah.
Right. So we'll do a whole episode on the beauty of emotional consequences because I think they're totally needed, totally normal, totally underrated. But an emotional consequence might sound like this. Look, I want to buy you this Starbucks, but I'm still kind of hurt over what happened earlier. Can we talk about that? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you know what? I I'd like to bring you to your camp later today, but you refused to go to your 7:15 therapist appointment today. And we talked about it. I tried to stay
Yeah.
calm and you still didn't go. And so that really affected me because it I feel kind of embarrassed because of the therapist and like it affected us. So can we have a heart to heart about this? You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
What else is on your mind when you hear me tell these little stories as we wrap up our episode?
I just, want to encourage everybody to try this and know that when you get to that point, you're going to get upset again because the kids are going to say, no, you're not, move on. They're going to give you reactions that you don't want to
Yes,
hear.
they
But
are.
you got to go back to step number 2, self-regulate. All right. And then keep pushing through. And then over time, you'll
Mm-hmm.
get to them. And again,
How
the
did you
first
know?
talk's not going to be perfect.
You're right. You just like looked into a crystal ball, and I have a ball too, and I think you're right. Your kids are, especially when you first start talking this way, Jordan. You're totally correct. They're not going to respond very well when they start hearing your heart, hearing your broken heart, hearing your confusion, hearing your why won't kids respond super well all the time when they hear that?
Because they don't want to have a heart to heart either. They just want to be a kid and go play. And they don't,
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly. They don't
yeah,
they don't want to. They don't know
it's
how
awkward.
to. It's
If it's awkward for
awkward.
you, it's awkward for them too.
But who's going to teach them how to care for someone's heart? How to build trust? Who's going to teach them? Right?
Cartoons.
And then the last thing is something you'll learn, and I'll help you with this more, is that if you do need to give natural consequences, then you give natural consequences. So many consequences, they're not natural, they're not connected. So, for example, if your child is abusing screens, they don't come to dinner on time, and you've tried all these other tools, well, then the consequence should mean that they take a break from that screen time because it's connected, right?
Connected,
It's
yes.
connected. If it's a certain video game that they're playing on, they're abusing, and they have D's and F's in school, well, then they're not entitled to that video game, right? If their job is to get A's, B's, and C's in their high school class to play on the soccer team, well, they're not entitled to play soccer, right? It's
Yeah.
like it should be connected. If someone is not in the car ready to go to school on time and you're arguing and arguing and arguing, well, consider this. Have them ride their bike to school. Have them
Right.
walk with Sean. That's 10 miles. So
So
it's 10 miles. Them walking to school once or twice, 10 miles, they're going to be okay. And, oh, well, Sean, then my kid won't go to school. Okay, well, now you're talking about extreme defiance. They're going to defy you by not going to school. Well, then, okay, well, then, yeah, don't go to school. You do school refusal. I can't give you any screen time or pay for your cell phone, or when you're just refusing what society tells you to do. Like, if you don't want to go to school, don't go to school. But I'm not just going to make this like a playhouse for you to hang out and ditch school,
mm-hmm.
right? Let's say this: your child does a good job in doing their chores in a timely manner, and you don't have to, you don't have to remind them. Well, what would be a natural consequence for that? Well, you could say, hey, I want to do this for you because you did such a good job. See, I just twisted it there. I just did a positive consequence.
Yeah.
You say, hey, because I feel so appreciated that you rocked your chores this week, I'm going to do this for you, right? You connect it. I'm going to do your
Yeah, we do
chores
that
for
with
you
ice cream
this
sometimes.
week.
Can I have ice cream? And I'll be
Yeah.
like, well, did you do something? And I'll bring that up. That's good.
I mean, I can give you example after example. It took me a while to understand not consequences. Here's something is that if a child is raging Cajun and belittling family members, raging at them, cussing them, treating them poorly, and then they want you to take them to softball practice. If you take them to softball practice, you'd be sending them a lot of messages and they haven't made amends. They haven't
Right.
had a heart talk. They haven't done the hard work. What message you'd be sending if you take that child to softball?
It's time to make some big decisions in some people's households.
The message would be in this family, softball is more important than family. That's what
Hmm.
you'd be teaching. So yes, there's so many different ways you can think of natural consequences that kind of work for you. So thank you so much for letting me open your mind and to teach you some principles from the positive parenting movement. And so it's really been a hard episode to teach on and be there. And thank you for Jordan. In recap, if you want to move into positive parenting principles, here's what you need to do. First step is realize this is about you. You've got to regulate your own emotions. Number two, you've got to have a mindset of stopping your reactions and stopping these consequences. Number three is realizing you are a coach, coaching, not controlling. Number four is realizing that this is all about a heart talk connection. Parenting is never about what it's about, and it is about the heart, building trust and connection. Number five is realizing that when ruptures happen, inviting your children into repairs, into making amends and coaching them on how to do that. Number six is if you feel like you have to do consequences, don't jump to them, but foreshadow them. Give them a heads up. Try to avoid them. Say, I don't want to do these consequences. They're going to be no fun. But if we can't work this out, then the right thing for me to do is to do these consequences. And lastly, number seven, if you feel like you need to do consequences, well, then do them right. Do natural emotional consequences that really connect with their hearts and with the issue at hand. Jordan, love you, man. Thanks
Good,
for being here.
good stuff, brother. Nice.
You've been
Nice.
honest with us about how some of these things are new for you. They were new for me not that long ago. Is there one thing that really stood out to you from today's episode that really you'll think you'll take into your parenting that you want to work on
Yeah.
or
I
put
mean,
more energy into?
obviously, I could work on coaching, not controlling for the rest of my life, right? So that's
Okay.
obvious. I mean, but
Okay.
just looking at some of this, I think I'm going to use more of your tools, such as foreshadowing consequences and just kind of looking ahead so that we can work on getting what both parties need.
Hmm. Love it. Foreshadowing, looking ahead. Jordan, my attitude of gratitude is I'm just so thankful for my daughter for gifting me this amazing 50-minute ride, taking her to the airport, and just letting me share stories, letting me share my heart, and just letting me coach her, letting me counsel her, let me just be with her. And I'm just so thankful and for that moment that I shared with her. How about
That's
you?
beautiful. I'm thankful that you shared that with us too, because it gave us a lot of like perspective of real life in Sean Donahue's world. I'm thankful for the first heart talk that I've ever had with my kids. It wasn't pretty. It didn't go to
Mm.
plan, but you know what? It was somewhere. It was a starting point, and from there we've been building and getting better and better. And now it's very routine, and I could see it working. And I am appreciative of these, notes that you've given us, so that we can kind of keep building on that. So thank you.